hotel room in San Gimignano, Tuscany. And of course, that's the little medieval town that's hundreds or thousands of years old. Let me see if I can show you what the view looks outside my room. Yes. All right, so that's just a short view of what the street looks like now. Interesting for me about this place in particular is that there's no big shops here. It's literally shops the size of a bedroom, some smaller. There's a butcher, a baker, a ceramic shop, a leather shop, a shoe shop, and gelato. Yes, thank you, gelato shop. Hundreds of little restaurants with coffee tables. So I've now decided my treat is a macchiato, espresso with a spot of milk. So my Italian, my lingo that I've learned now is espresso macchiato uno. Grazie. And so my spoil. Yes, maybe you guys know I collect knives. So this is Fox knives. You can't see so nice, but it's a beautiful little knife with brass handles made in Italy. So that was the spoil that I had to close my eyes and bite on my teeth to get it. Folks, then enough about me. It's going well with me. I hope it's going well with you. I miss you guys. I hope it's going good. Last week we spoke out of Rome. This is a pre-recording because this evening I wasn't sure about the accommodation and where we were going to end up with connectivity. It's very dodgy in some places. Um, and I don't wanna bugger you guys around and let you dial in and then there's no one sitting on the other side. So I thought, let me just pre-record. Welcome to everyone. Please, please, students, again, take from my heart the position that I have, and that is that you guys are doing well. We are still proud of you. You are on your way to making a huge success of what we are busy with. A bit of housekeeping just to start things off. So assignment 2 is there. I'm not sure if the marks have been released. They might have been, and we're going to talk a bit more about marks and so on in a while. I'm going to sit and play with my knife. Can I tell you this, guys, off the record? They say when you're a knife collector like me, so I've got hundreds, literally hundreds of knives. Yes, I carry a knife every day and I peel an apple, open a package, that sort of thing. So I use it, but I cut myself a lot. I'm even to the point now where I say, if I haven't cut myself the knife and I haven't bonded, so I cut myself with this little new knife. So I'm relieved. I still have all my fingers, but I've bled and now the knife and me are bonded. Interesting. That's just my little thing. So assignment 2 feedback. I'm going to go through a couple of regular things, general things. I did ask you guys to feel welcome to send me Q&A. Of course, we've got time left. We will do that. What's still left in this module, folks, is of course assignment 3, which is a group assignment. More about that in a minute. And then the exam. We might have some students opting to write an on-campus exam. And we might have some students opting to write the DUGA invigilated exam. So what is that? Believe it or not, there's a method now. Maybe you guys have used it in the first semester. I was extremely impressed when I used it for one of my modules in first semester, where the invigilated exam is basically cameras looking at you as you sit and as you write, and people watching you, and probably AI as well. And as you sit at your desk and there's a camera on you, the human or the non-human or the hybrid human and non-human technology / personality, cognitive ability, and so on, keeps a close eye on you. So if you are staring at your lap for 5 minutes, chances are that you are reading stuff down. If you're staring at the wall, like I'm doing now, endlessly, what am I gonna do? Can you guys see I'm reading crypt notes off the wall? Yes. The normal thinking, they say, have you guys heard this thing of when people think, some people look up and down and right or left? Apparently there's some whole thing about that as well. But whatever the case may be, it's completely normal to read a question and then think, oh, yes, I've got it. Or what's the this and that, and you think, okay, you type, and you type. So the invigilator exam means you are being watched as you write, of course, at the convenience of your location of choice, minimizing or even eradicating logistical issues for our distance offerings. Duga is the technology they use. It's not Daga, guys. It's not Daga. It's not the wacky weed. It's not the mountain cabbage we're talking about. It's Duga. Duga, not Daga. Yeah, so if that's the way the exam is going to work, then it is what it is, and we make it work. If there is an option for some students to go and sit and write an exam with a pen, when last did you sit and write with a pen for 3 hours and become limp-wristed because we're not used to writing with a pen, hey? With my online class, it's one thing. With my campus offerings, I always say, guys, handwriting. If I'm marking your book at 2 o'clock on a Sunday morning and I can't read your paper, I'm just going to draw a red line right through your work. And students being so clever and always being 2 steps ahead of us lecturers. One day, one little student asked me, "Sir, have you ever marked work at 2 o'clock on a Sunday morning?" I said, to be honest, no, I haven't. But it just sort of gave some oomph to my warning. So if you end up as one of the students that do decide to write on campus on a physical book of paper, remember, guys, I must be able to read what you are writing there. I cannot sit and try and decipher what you are scribbling on your book. So sometimes when students write in an exam book, in the exam, typically 3 hours, 60, 120 mark type of thing, you will get the students that write 3 books, three exam books or scripts full. It's a lot of work. We'll spend time on exam brief. I am digressing and jumping the gun. What I was saying was assignment 3 is coming up, the group assignment and exam. Those are the deliverables outstanding for the module, and then do not forget the precious ice. My precious ice is 10 marks, folks. As I've said before, yes, I am in a good mood. I haven't had beer. No, I'm 100% sober. I've had gelato and about a gazillion coffees. 10% can be make or break between a non-distinction and a distinction. 10% can be make or break between taking you into a higher band. You're sitting at a 58 and we can take you to a 60 with ICE. ICE deadline for campus, please look at me, is 17 October. My ICE deadline is not 17 October. Campus wants me to get them the final ICE results by 17 October. So let me share quickly. No. So there's no way that I can let you guys finish ICE by 17 October. The cutoff will be before that. Activities, discussions. ICE task 1. Look at that. 40 students have done it. 2, 29, 3, 4. 8 students have done it. There it is, folks. There's your ICE. There's 4 places here on the module page where you can do your ICE. And the fact that I see the majority of you have done it, 42 students have done ICE task 1, shows me that you guys know where it is. That's your 4 ICE task. And of course, we're talking 2.5% per ICE tasks. We totals then at 4 times that. 10%. Am I doing it right? 10% ICE tasks. My deadline would be closer to 10 October. 10 October, I will communicate, but it will be before 17 October. Do not delay ICE. There's no reason to delay ICE. Delaying ICE will not make it easier, folks. By no means. No specific Q&As. Groups. Couple of students asked me, so we've got a group. It's me and this student. Can we continue? Yes, guys. I don't know what your arrangement was in the first semester. I've always and forever been leaning toward self-regulation of groups. In other words, you guys organize yourself into groups between, I think, 2 and 5. I don't know if it's 2 and 5 or 3 and 5, and we might go to 6, possibly. So some lecturers like to divide the class into syndicate groups. We call it syndicate groups. Some lecturers like this one will say, you guys are big, you're all grown up. I prefer you to self-organize and self-regulate your groups. So please do the latter. You've had a problem in semester 1 and you were 5 members and now you're kicking someone out, and that person, figuratively speaking, lands on their butt outside on the cold tar. Guys, please don't just do that lightly. Bite on your teeth, get through what you have to get through, and get it out of your life. Don't kick people out and take offenses and all of that. On that note, don't use the peer evaluation instrument lightly. My default situation is this. Everyone gets 5%, I believe. It's 5 or whatever the weighting may be for peer evaluation. There's a 5-member group. And Johnny and Susie, I know your names are much more beautiful and clever than that. But for argument's sake, Johnny and Susie broke up, and now Susie is penalizing Johnny and Johnny is penalizing Susie. Lands on my desk. Question mark. What's going on here? What about the 3 remaining members? I didn't get any bad vibes from them. So are you guys in agreement here? Who, what? I'm not going to entertain that, guys. My standard situation is 5% to everyone. Peer review wise, absolutely open where deemed, merited, and appropriate. This or this student did not pull her or his weight. Why? Sir, the student did not pitch to any of our meetings. Sir, the student did not prepare and compile the allocated sections or portions of the work and send it on time. Sir, the student did absolutely no effort in terms of communicating to the rest of the group. You see where I'm going. Mark the student down in terms of peer review, and then we would generally get the remaining members to be on the same page. If I see 4 reviews for John coming in, John or Jane Doe coming in saying the same thing, then I'm comfortable to say, well, let's get out the red pen and let's penalize John or Jane Doe. You got me, guys? But don't use it as a, it's painful. Group work is always painful. And I've got a grin on my face because we designed it like that. To expose you guys to the real life. You can choose your friends, and that's the only thing you can choose. You cannot choose your family, and you cannot choose the people you work with, for your suppliers, well, people working there, your customers walking into your shop. You can't choose them. So you are in one boat with these people now for assignment 3, and you have to make it work. All right, I'm spending too much time on this. Sort out your groups. You don't even have to copy me in on that. Organize your own groups. Make it work. Take the pain, take it on the chin like a man or a woman, and make it work. And as I said, the goal that you are looking forward to is getting the assignment out of your life forever. Life. Life is life. Yes. That's group assignment 3. We'll spend a bit more time on that next week. I think I'm back on home soil around the 8th, 9th. So I should be coming into you live next week. I might ask you to do it a bit later, but I'll communicate depending on how the flight goes. Then this evening, I want to, or this afternoon as I'm sitting here, I want to take you guys, and I'm going to share this this screen. It's a blank screen that I'm sharing. Sorry, my mic was muted for a while. I'm so sorry. Let me repeat. I don't know how long it was muted. I'm saying I'm going to talk about, not so much about content. Rubric is evaluated via, the content is evaluated via the rubric. There's a question, 15 marks. You start writing. I look at a couple of submissions before I start marking to get a feel for where they sit. The rubric says between 0 and 4. That's what we see in the rubric. Between 5 and 8, between 9 and 12, between 12 and 15, for argument's sake. What's the band where you fall in that rubric, guys? I use the rubric to say this is where I think, this is the range where I think you sit. It's not that easy for me to tell you why I think so. I ask 50 of you to make me a cheese and tomato sandwich. I get 50 cheese and tomato sandwiches back. Some of them I look at and I say, I don't want to eat that. Some of them I look at and I say, this is too beautiful to eat. Wow, it's amazing. Majority of them is average and more of the same and more of the same. It's not so easy for me to tell you exactly why you got a 64 or a 62 or a 71. It's not that easy for me. I'm using the rubric. I don't have 100 memorized things in my head. This is a 1, this is a 2, this is a 3, this is a 4, this is a 89, this is a 90, this is a 92. It doesn't work like that. There is a bit of impression marking involved, although I use the rubric. Why am I always going on about your, let's call it the look? And this is not Roxette. Why am I always carrying on about this? Because, can I guys tell you what's the first thing that I look at when I open your submission? And many of my colleagues do the same. I look at your cover page. I look at your table. Oopsie. No. Of contents. I look at your reference list. What I see in your cover page, your table of contents, by the way, that's the only thing you call it, your reference list, tells me something that I can expect about the rest of the submission. Believe it or not, that's the truth. If I see sloppiness, there, I don't have much hope for the rest of your submission. If I see excellence there, it puts me in a mind frame where I think, all right, this student went to trouble to give me a faultless and a flawless TOC, a reference list, cover page. I am expecting good stuff. I'm expecting good work from this student. Is that important? It is important. You do a $1 million deal or a $10 million deal, and the guy shows up with an old battered 1914 car with pluckies and flip-flops and PT shorts and a t-shirt with a hole in, unshaved, and hair is oily. Do you want to do 10 million rand business with that person? No, you don't. Tells you something. And we are all like that, folks. Someone pitches up, nicely dressed, fancy car, clean, good, well taken care of, manicured and all of that, groomed. You want to sign, you want to do business. So the package that you give me your assignment in is important. Guys, a table of contents has certain sections. So if the one is intro, and then there's something on work, and then there's something on education, and then there's something on maths. If that's your main sections, please use numbers. Please use numbers in your table of contents, guys. What you should also be very mindful of is when you have subtitles here and you say 1.1, now you can maybe go to a different type of text. So this is now cheese. Yes, it's very common to have a title named cheese. Maybe you make this bold, and cheese under that is not bold. So work will be bold, education will be bold, maths will be bold, and the subheadings will not. You make a plan to make that work. Can you see this little thing that I made here looks neat? So then the other thing, make sure that your page numbers are correct. Make sure that they correspond. Guys, I've seen so many where they don't line up at all. They'll say, listen, why are you carrying on about that little stuff? Guys, because it's like feeding you a steak in a dirty plate with newspaper in it. Hey, so enjoy your steak. It's 300 rand, by the way. I'm dishing it up in an old shoebox with dust, feathers, mud, and coin, little change in it. But enjoy it. Are you going to eat that steak? No, you're not. Package your work in a way that's neat. I'm going to get to content now. Table of contents. That's what this thing is called. Now I start writing my text. You cannot give me this. You cannot give me a heading that is not the same style and size as the heading in the TOC. Can you see they are different? The same style, the same size, everything, you can copy it there, must be the same. As in your text, as in your TOC. And now you start typing blah, blah, blah. And now your subheadings and your next headings. Subheadings, if you go to 1.2.3, that's maxing it out. Some of you went to 1.2.6.9. That's ridiculous. Don't do that. Maximum 3 levels. We spoke about that. Your headings and your subheadings, paragraphs. Do not, guys, do not write pages and pages without subheadings. Use paragraphs. Please make your work readable for me. Order, logic, coherence, flow. Rational thinking, no repetitions, consistency. South African grammar, not USA, please. We are living in South Africa. Look for the Z's. Emphasize. Yeah, I'm typing like a United States. Emphasize. South Africa. Right. Deal with your question under a heading using subheadings to give structure. Structure. I'm looking at myself in the camera there. I must look here. Give me a nice, meaningful, sensible structure in your work. The look is important. And I am always carrying on and on and on and on and on about stuff like TOCs and reference lists. Reference list. That's what it's called. Nothing else. Not bibliography, not references, not, no, don't number them, don't bullet them. Remember to put them in alphabetical order. Remember Harvard, Anglia, IIE 2025. Study the convention regarding everything. That is brackets, spaces, full stops, commas, italics, and. Death penalty. Et al. In a ref list. Et al. In a ref list is a death penalty. I'm sorry. 10%. 10%. Et al. In a ref list. So, I need your paper to be neat, readable, edited, sound. Your paper must be academically sound from an editing perspective. Content. You get a question. You cannot answer the question from your own ideas. The lens you use to answer the question is academic work. You have to look for that. Company ABC has a huge turnover of employees. All right, so what? We can all have opinions about that, but that's not going to get us anywhere. We look for scholarly literature about employee turnover. And now we see Watson says, Watson 2013 says, fantastic source. It's not older than about 12 years. So that's a fine source. Really? No, I'm joking. That source is 12 years old, guys. What Watson said in 2013 is no longer contemporary. It's no longer current. Please don't use old sources. Watson 2023 argues, he believes, he postulates, he is of the opinion. Can you use different verbs to say the same thing? Absolutely. That a relatively huge staff turnover can negatively affect employee morale and culture. Now you tell me, sir, but that's common knowledge. If people are resigning left, right, and center, everyone knows that it's going to affect morale and culture. No, in the academic world, we don't use common sense or common knowledge. You have to have a scholarly reference to say what you want to say. And now there's 3 keywords I want you guys to always use. Integrate, motivate, substantiate. What do we integrate, sir? You integrate theory with the actual case study. You integrate, you marry theory with the case study. That's what you have to do. You cannot just talk about the situation from where you at, your experience, what you think, what you've read. No, you have to go and dig like a rabbit in the IIE database, deep down into the academic databases, the EBSCO hosts, the Emeralds and that other nice one, something in Francis, Taylor and Francis. Brilliant, brilliant database. Look, I'm pulling my face real ugly when I say it. Brilliant database. You look for theoretical nuggets that you can integrate with that. Now, the case study says company ABC has a huge turnover of staff. You can say a lot of nonsense there, but you're not allowed to. You go and look for something and you stumble across Watson. And Watson says if there's a huge turnover of staff, it can affect moral and culture. Now you've got something to, now you can marry theory and practice. You can integrate that. Now you can say stuff that you can motivate. You can motivate. You can really say whatever you want. And especially in my class, and especially in my module, guys, you can literally say what you want. I'm opening the gate wide for you, as long as you can motivate what you are saying. Why are you saying that? What's your reasoning? You suggest as a recommendation and intervention, looking at um, the way that people are appointed, the way that people are brought in or onboarded into company ABC, because why are people landing and literally leaving again soon after they've landed? You're making that recommendation. Can you motivate it? Yes, you can. Because Watson says there's a culture problem. It either puts its finger on the problem or it's spiraling down, or there's something you can say. You can motivate that statement because you've got something to stand on. Substantiate. Substantiate, I think, speaks to substantiate as much and as best you can, whatever you can, using refs, citations, scholarly sources. So you integrate, you marry theory with practice, you motivate, you say stuff, but you have to say why you say it. Research. I am using, no, the researcher is using a qualitative approach. Why? That's motivate. The researcher is using a purposive sampling technique. Why? That's motivating. Data will be collected via semi-structured face-to-face interviews. Okay, that's fine. Why? Motivate, motivate, motivate. As according to the Ploesel et al., this data collection method provides deep, textured, rich responses from participants. Now you substantiate it. You've motivated and you've substantiated with a scholarly citation. Guys, I hope this helps you. I really hope this helps you. Your hobby: paddle, piano, playing guitar. Is that how you spell guitar? Banjo, I play the banjo. I play the harmonica. I'm just putting it down. It's my own stuffies. Harmonica. You weld. Some of you guys, some of you do calligraphy. When last did you do calligraphy? Sing. Some of you are singers. You can sing. La 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 la. Some of you can sing. The first day you started playing paddle, were you any good? Piano, any good? Did any of you wake up one morning and you could play the guitar? Any of you? No. The harmonica, the banjo. Did any of you walk to your dad's workshop one morning, gents, and now took out a welder and you welded a perfect weld? No. Did any of you artist people pick up a pen, a fountain pen, and you did calligraphy writing the very first time you picked up the pen? Did any of you said, listen, I'm going to sing? All right, some of you were silenced the minute you opened your mouth and asked not to sing again. Some of you were noticed, and what happened then? They said, let's get you a coach, let's get you a vocal coach so that we can develop your singing. Academic writing is nothing different at all. It's a growth curve. It's a growth curve where you get better. It's not the same curve for all of us. It's not the same duration for all of us, but all of us gets better, and that's what I want to see. Guys, if I tell you in your feedback assignment 1, justify your text, please. This is a big one. Justify your text. I'm typing in Czech here, so I'm not just typing gibberish. I am fluent at Czech, the language that's spoken in Czechoslovakia. Some of you will be able to understand it. This text is justified, guys. It's a block. Half of you do not justify your text. It's sloppy. I tell you assignment 1, justify text, please. You give me assignment 2, your text isn't justified. I tell you use subheadings. I tell you use a detailed TOC. I tell you it's a reference list, not a bibliography. I tell you there's so many mistakes, please use Harvard Anglia. I tell you please include a cover page, there's no cover page. I tell you please use line spacing because you're giving me a massive clutter that I cannot read. And I get the same back in assignment 2, then what must I do? That's why I keep the feedback from assignment 1 so that you can see it in assignment 2. This is justified text. You will get better. Just do the right thing. Do right what you can do right, guys. That's what I'm saying. Do the editing and the readability of your paper. Do that as best you can. When I give all of you ingredients and I say bake a chocolate cake and I've got 60 chocolate cakes, I'm going to get a variety of cakes. Some of you are going to burn the cake. Some of you are going to give me a so-so cake. Some of the cakes are going to rise in the oven. Some of them are going to fall flat. Some of the icing is going to be haha. Some of them is going to be good. And that doesn't mean that's forever your lot. Next time you do a cake that you burn this time, you maybe make a wonderful cake. But we get better as we do. Here's my biggest tip. Academic writing, guys, is based on altogether academic, drumroll, reading. Oh man, isn't there a shortcut? No. Read academic work so that you can get the tone, so that you can get the vibe of how academia is presented. Academic discourse. I'm looking at that thing, not the camera. How do academics roll in terms of their tone, the way they interact with words, academic discourse, which is not literary discourse. There's no, we don't use metaphors. We don't write love stories. By the way, your paper, avoid color. I don't want to see blue and yellow and red and green thingies on your paper, guys. It's cold, it's clinical, it's lelik, it's boring. It is boring. It is boring. It's supposed to be boring. Academic reading is not bedside reading. It's not Wilbur Smith, folks. It is boring. So your work should also look boring. Fix what you can and give me a faultless edited document. From cover page, TOC, headings, subheadings, justified text, correct line spacing, correct font, as many subheadings and paragraphs as you can, reference list, appendices or annexures, all faultless. That's a good start. And then grow the curve, walk your curve or get on your curve in terms of your skills as you grow on that curve and get better. I don't know where you are going to be 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 3 months from now, but I want you to at least be better than you are now. Are you better at academic writing than you were in January, 1st of January? I sincerely hope so. I believe so. How much better? Difficult to quantify. Maybe it doesn't go like that for you. Maybe it was a bit of a, but we get better when we apply ourselves, when we commit ourselves to something, we get better. And that's what I want to leave with you this evening. Don't give me 60 tomato and cheese sandwiches and tell me exactly why this one has this. It doesn't work like that. Your sandwich, the mark you get, and then I also want to tell you, marks at the IIE is moderated. So your marks are moderated. I'm not the only one looking at your marks. So the mark you get is pretty much the mark you deserve. You can rest with that thought. I'm going throw around distinctions a lot in postgrad. No, I don't. I love my students. I sincerely do. But because I like you, doesn't mean I'm going to hoy you with distinctions left, right, and center. Guys, I'm happy to adjourn you. I hope this helped you. When I'm saying, please be proud when you submit that submit button on ARC. AI, it's never been your friend. It's never going to be your friend. Avoid a freaking I. When AI is used in a generative way, I'm going to use the rubric and I'm going to punish you because it's not your own work. I'm old school. Look, the beard is gray, guys. I'm an old school academic. I love technology, But AI generation of academic texts is not what we can afford. It's not what Imerus going for university status can afford. You guys, as the cream of the crop on campus, the postgrads, can your work stand up to scrutiny for the whole wide academic world, guys? Put the badges on, take the responsibility. We are looking up at you guys, at your research output. That's me, Mr. Domini, coming out again, preaching, motivating, supporting you relentlessly. Take care. We speak next week.